Hello everyone. If you are new to the Azure DevOps and you want to learn how to create a end-to-end CI/CD pipeline for your project, so this video is for you. In this video, first I will tell you about what is the CI/CD pipeline, how to set up it in Azure DevOps, how to start a application from scratch, and how to deploy it on Azure with the help of Azure DevOps CI/CD pipeline. If you're coming to the channel first time, I request to you please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that the information about such valuable videos you will get notified. So let's get started with the video. Now let's understand what is continuous integration. So continuous integration means it is an integration of complete code in the common repository which is shared across the team. Obviously when you're working on a project, so a team of the developers is working on the project and the developer team commit the changes to the source control. It can be the Git, it can be the GitHub, or like it can be the TFS. So every time when the developer is committing the changes, so based upon those changes, we should trigger the build, or I can say we usually trigger the build so that we verify what are the changes has been committed so far. So when they are going to integrate with the existing code, so there is no error while building the application. So in the continuous integration, the flow is here. We having the multiple developers in the team, and when a developer will commit the code, that code will obviously commit it to the version control repository like Git, TFS, or like GitHub, and we having a continuous integration server. This server automatically pull the committed changes recently the developer did, and based upon the changes it entirely build the application. And what are the test cases we are having behind the scene, those test cases also going to be checked over there. If everything is working fine, so it further proceed to the next level for creating a build, or you can say for providing the build to the release pipeline. If there is any error in build process, so it will provide a detailed report to us, like this is the point where the build has been failed. So continuous integration is actually a important thing when we are going to commit the changes and we are going to verify whether the changes are committed by the developers are going to impact the entire build lifecycle or not. So in summary, the continuous integration is all about to build the code whenever a developer commit the changes, and based upon the committed changes it provides us a detailed report whether it has been successful or whether it has been failed. So this is about the continuous integration you should know. Continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is the next step for the continuous integration. So what happens when the developer is committing the changes to the version control repository? So from there the CI server pull the changes and build the code and try to pass all the test cases. If all the test cases are going to pass as per the business acceptance, so we can deploy the code on the production environment. Or it's up to you what are the environment you are using for deploying the code. So you can deploy the code to the development environment, you can deploy the code to that staging environment, or you can deploy the code to the production environment. So after the continuous integration, we deploy the code to the specified environment over there. So this is about the continuous delivery. Now let's understand the continuous delivery and continuous deployment, how these two things are different from each other. So when we say about the continuous delivery, in case of continuous delivery, after the staging deployment to the production machine, we do the manual deployment. It means after testing everything in the development stage, then in the testing stage, then in the staging server, when we are sure everything is working fine in this sprint, or I can say in this release, we manually deploy to the production machine. So this is the practice we follow in the continuous delivery process. And if you will look at in the continuous deployment, so continuous deployment, there is a automate deployment of the release to the production machine. So basically we having the some checkpoints over there, we having the acceptance test cases. If all the test cases are going to be tested or you can say are going to be verified at the staging environment, so it automatically deploy or release to the production server. So if you are following the automate deployment to the production server, it is continuous deployment option. So this is the difference here between the continuous delivery and the continuous deployment. So based upon the requirement, you can use the continuous delivery or you can use the continuous deployment. So usually we prefer the continuous delivery option. Before deploying the code to the production environment, we manually check all the things, and finally when we sure everything is working fine, we deploy to the production server. So for creating a Azure pipeline, so first of all we need to create a Azure Web App. After creating the Azure Web App, we will create the project using the Visual Studio so that we can configure it with the Azure DevOps. So let's first create the Azure Web App. Later on we will create and configure the DevOps project, then we will create the project over there using the Visual Studio. So make sure you are having the Microsoft Azure portal access, so you can subscribe to the Microsoft Azure and then you will have the access to the Microsoft Azure portal. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to create a resource over there, and here I'm just looking for the web app. So here I'm just going to create a new resource group. So let me create a new resource group. DNTRG is my resource group, and here I'm just defining my app name. Let's say DNT Web App. Okay, DNT Web App is already taken by somebody else, so let me take the different name. So DNT Web App DevOps. So this name can be anything, but make sure it is unique in the selected region, Central US. So I'm just using here the runtime stack. So as a runtime stack, I'm using here ASP.NET Core 3.1 base application we are just going to deploy. So just use here .NET Core 3.1. And here we can deploy the code as well as we can deploy the Docker container. So here I'm not willing to deploy the Docker container, that's why I'm using here the code option. Then you can select the operating system Linux and Windows. So I'm just using here Windows, but you can go ahead with the Linux also. Then do select here the Windows plan. So here this is suggesting us the plan name. So this plan name you can change, it's up to you what the plan name you're willing to give it. Let's say DNT Web App. Let's say Web App Desk Plan. So this is my plan. I'm just going to create over there, and from here you can decide the SKU and the size also. So let's say I'm just going to start with the standard plan S1. Even you can select the other plan also, which is available S2, S3, S3, and we have P1, P2 and P3. So let's go ahead with the S1 also. The next option here for monitoring. If you're willing to monitor the application, we can enable or disable it here. So right now I'm not enabling it, it's disabled here because it. So here whatever the runtime stack we have selected, that is not supporting actually the application inside. So that's why we are not able to mention here yes. So make sure you are selecting the proper runtime to use it. Let's go to the next option for tagging. If you are willing to put over the label, so label I'm not putting over there. Now let's review the changes before creating it. So let me create it now. So it has been submitted for the deployment. After some time it will create the web app. And guys, here if you are willing to learn the web app in the detail, so on the .NET X we already having a course on Microsoft Azure Web App. So if you are willing to learn all the aspect of the Azure Web App, you can refer this course, creating and managing the Azure Web App. Here explain the different types of app services, everything explained in detail. So I suggest you here you should refer this course to understand the Azure Web App in detail. So you can see the deployment has been completed. Let's go to the resource to verify everything has been completed. So right now it's having a testing web page. Let's browse it. It is showing me, hey, app service developers, the app service is up and running. So perfectly it is working fine. So now our web app is ready. Now we need to create the DevOps organization so that we can configure the DevOps organization for the Azure App and for various other things. Creating and configuring the DevOps projects. So far what we have done, we created the Azure Web App. using the Azure portal. Now what we need to do here using the DevOps portal, we need to create a DevOps organization, and there we will create the DevOps project so that we can start building our ASPNET core application, and whatever the changes we are building in a local machine, we start pushing to the Azure app over there, and later on we will build the Azure pipeline. So last time we just log into the portal.azure.com, and this time we will log into the dev.azure.com. so we having a site dev.azure.com. So to log in into this dev.azure.com, make sure you are having the Azure DevOps subscription. So you can sign up here at free of cost. Even you can use the same email ID which you are using for this Azure portal subscription. Same can be used with the Azure DevOps also. So I'm logging with the same email ID. So it's the same. I'm just using sign into the Azure DevOps. So you can see here I'm already having here few organization which I created for learning purpose, or let's say for training purpose. So now let's do one thing here. Let's create a new organization. I'm just going to create it from scratch. So let's continue to accept the condition. And here it is just suggesting the new organization name. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going here, the new organization name, what the application we created. It's up to you what the name you're willing to give it here. I'm just using here, let's say DNT app org. Let's say this is my organization name. Let's say DNT org app. So this is the better name here. And within a organization, you can have multiple projects over there. Now you can define the host location, like where you are going to host your project. It can be in India, it can be outside India also. So let's say I'm just using a South India as a location for hosting this project over there. Let's continue. So what it is doing behind the scene, it is creating a new DevOps organization for us with the given name. So now you can see the organization has been created. The name is here DNT org apps. So here we can have multiple applications. So what we need to do here, we need to create a project over there. So I'm just defining the project name exactly the same as we define our web app name. So it is here DNT Web App DevOps project. But you can have different name also. So I'm just defining a DNT Web App. Let's say just mention a DNT Web App. Then you can define the visibility like public and private. So in the public, like anyone can access it. But here this project I'm not creating here for as an open source project. I'm just creating it for my personal use. Like it's an organization level project. So it should be private. So let's just click on this plus icon button so that we can create the project. So now it is creating a new project for us. So now the new project has been created. So you can see we having the option here for board, we having the option here for repos, pipelines, test plans and artifacts. So these are the various offerings the Azure DevOps is offering to us. So here I'm not just going to cover here board and other things. We just focus here on the repos and the pipelines. So two things we are just going to cover over there. So let's go to the repos over there. And if you look at, I don't have anything set up right now. So it is a new repo we need to set up. So they're just giving us a URL. So using this URL, I can set up this one in my local machine using either VS Code, either using the Visual Studio. So what I will prefer here, just copy this URL. And now just open the Visual Studio 2019. I'm having the Visual Studio 2019. And this Visual Studio 2019, we having the option clone a repository. So just use the option here, clone a repository. Now just paste that copied URL. Now define your local path where you are willing to clone that repository code. So I'm just going to select here my local folder. So let's say I'm using a desktop. Let's say it is here. We having for code, and I'm using, let's say, I'm just creating here a folder for the DevOps. Any folder you can create over here, it's up to you. And here let me select this folder over there. Now there is option here to clone. Let me clone it. So what it will do, it will clone everything from the Azure repos to my local machine. Let me mention here your credential to the Azure DevOps. I'm mentioning my credential over there. Now I have just signed in over there. So if you look at here, after some time you will get to know that everything has been synced from the Azure DevOps project to the local machine. If you will look at it, this is my folder which is available. If you will browse to this location, we have here open folder in File Explorer. So this has been added, and right now this is containing only one folder, .vs. So this .vs folder is containing with few settings over there, project settings and the SQLite file it is containing here. So this has been set up completely. So now what we need to do here at this location, we need to create a new project. So it can be a ASP.NET Core application, it can be ASP.NET MVC5 application. Now we will set up it here, and finally we will push the code to the Azure repo. What are the repo we are having? So right now we don't have any code in the repo because we have not created any project in the local machine, and even we have not pushed that code here. So in the next video I will show you here how we can create the project and how we can push it to the Azure repos over there. Creating ASP.NET Core project. So far what we have done, we just created a DevOps organization and there we created a project. So now that we need to configure with the local machine. So already we just map the DevOps project with the local folder, and in that local folder we need to add the ASP.NET Core base application. So let's see how we can do it here using the Widgets 2019. So I'm already open the Widgets 2019 as we did last time, and make sure you are having the home for the DevOps. If sometime it happens you are not able to find out the created folder which you have done in the C drive, you can go ahead to the back location and there you will find out all the available connected services. So you can see I'm having here Azure DevOps, I'm having here GitHub, and you can see the local machine I'm already having the DevOps. So make sure you have already installed here the Git for the Windows. So make sure you have installed the Git for Windows to configure it properly. So in my case I have already installed the Git for my Windows, but you need to install it if you are using the Mac. So make sure you have installed the Git for the Mac. So I have already installed the Git for Windows. Now I'm just going to go into this DevOps mapping in a local machine what we are having. Now there is option to create a new project. Click on the new button. Now here I can select the ASP.NET Core template. Click on the next button. Define the project name. Let's say the project name is here. DNT Web App is my project name. And make sure you are using the same location. Let's say C drive, code and the DevOps. Now let's click on the create button to proceed further, and here you will find out all the available templates which we can use with the ASP.NET Core application. And right now if you will look at the latest version, I'm using here ASP.NET Core 3.1, but later on you can have the ASP.NET 5, ASP.NET 6. So it doesn't mean what the version is there, you can select over there the version. I'm using here MVC template to create my ASP.NET Core MVC application. And here I'm not using the HTTPS. Let's go ahead with only HTTP. Now click on the create button to create my ASP.NET Core MVC application with all the necessary settings. And if you will look at what the code has been generated, the code has been generated like this way. We having here DNT Web App, and it is containing the solution like this way. DNT Web App, then we having the solution inside this DNT Web App folder. So what I need to do here actually for the easiness purpose, this entire things we need to move to the at this folder label. At the one label above I need to move it the things. So before committing the changes, let's do a minor change over there because I don't want to face an issue at the time of build. So let me cut the things from here and put it at the one label above. here. So everything is available now here, and at the root level we having the DNT Web App solution. So I just close my Visual Studio. Now let me open it again. So this is a trick you need to do here, because it will help us when we are going to find out the location for the solution file. Now you can look at the changes. What are the changes we have done in the local repository? All the changes you will find out over there. So you can see all the files which we are going to add. It is showing me in the list over there. So these files are going to add over here, like CSS, JavaScript file, CS file, every change it is going. But before committing the changes, let's make sure everything is running fine in my local machine. So let me test it first, then I will push the changes to the Azure repos. So now you can see here the every application is running fine over there. So now you can see here the application is running fine without any issue. So now let me push these changes to the Azure repos. So here I'm just using here my changes to Team Explorer, then define here a message initial. Then you will find out here the option the commit all. So commit all will commit the changes to the local repo, not to the cloud repo. Then we having the option here commit all and the push. So commit all and the push will commit the changes to the local repo first, then those changes it will push to the cloud repo also. So let's use this option commit all and the push, so that in the one case it will commit the changes to the cloud repo also. Now let me check it out at the Azure DevOps organization whether we having the code at the repo level or not. Let me reload the code over there. Now you can see here I'm already having the now code over there. So what are the code we having in the local machine? Now we first successfully deploy to the Azure DevOps repository. So this is the Azure DevOps repo. The code is available over there. Now here we are ready to set up the build pipeline. So there is option here for the pipeline, from where we will set up the build pipeline. Demo for creating a Azure build pipeline with Azure Web App. So right now we created the ASPNET core web application. Now let's see how we can create a build pipeline with the help of Azure Web App and the Azure DevOps. So what I'm doing here, this code we already check in to the Azure repos and it is available over there. Now there is an option here for Azure pipelines, and in the Azure pipeline we having the option to create a pipeline over there. Now here if you will look at, we can create the various types of pipeline. We can create the pipeline for deploying the code to the staging environment. We can create a pipeline for deploying the code to the production environment. But here I'm not creating the first release pipeline. First we will create the build pipeline. Later on we will create the release pipeline. So what I'm doing, I'm just going to create a pipeline for the build process. So there is option here, it is suggesting us like where your code is available. Azure repo, Git, or we having some other option also like GitHub. We having the GitHub Enterprise Edition also. And if you look at, we having here two style to create the pipeline. We having the YAML style and we having the classic editor style. Here to make it simple, I will use the classic editor style. But because in the classic editor style, we having a complete GUI based interface where we can just select the things and set up it easily. In the some other course, I will talk about how we can configure the Azure pipeline with the help of YAML. So in the YAML we need to write the code. So I'm just using here the classic editor to make it simple. In the classic editor we having the option here for Azure repos Git. So we having the Git repository over there. So what all the repository we created over there by default support the Git, but you can have the support for the TFS also. But in this case I'm having the Git. So this is my team project, this is my repository, and what branch you are using. So we're just using the master branch. We don't have any branch, but sometime when you are dealing with the multiple sprints, like multiple the story over there, you can have the multiple branch over there. But in our case, we having only one branch, master branch. Let me select the master branch, then click on the continue button. Now it is asking for to configure it using the YAML and using the built-in template. So we having a template as your web app for ASP.NET, and we having the others template also. We having the template for ASP.NET Core web application also. So it's up to you what the template you like where you are willing to deploy the things. So I suggest you here you should go ahead with the template here as your web app for ASP.NET if it is a MVC5 application, but it is a ASP.NET Core application. So what I will prefer here, I will prefer here ASP.NET Core template. Let me select this template over there. Now if you will look at here in this template, there is a agent. By default it is suggesting here a agent offered by the Microsoft Azure itself. So we don't need to worry about the agent is the part of the Azure pipeline. Then these are the steps already defined over there. So we having the steps to restore all the .NET Core packages, then to build it, then to test the test cases, then we finally having the option to publish the code, and finally we having the option to publish the artifacts. So as a output from this pipeline, we need the artifacts, and this artifacts further we will use in the release pipeline to deploy the code either to the staging environment or either to the production environment. So here we are building a build pipeline, not the release pipeline. Now you can define here this build pipeline name. So here it is by default suggesting the build pipeline name as we having the project name, and it is having a CI here for continuous integration. Now this is the agent pool you can select over there. So you can see we having the agent pool here, the Azure pipeline, and it is using here the Azure pipeline agent pool. If you are having your own agent pool, you can select over there. But in the Azure DevOps portal, we having the agent provided by the Microsoft Azure itself. So those of them we are using. But you can use here your custom agent also. This is the agent specification over there. So this agent is running from the Ubuntu machine. It can be run from the Windows and the Mac OS also. Let's go ahead with the Ubuntu machine. So don't worry about that one. So what is happening? Agent is a process running on the Ubuntu machine to perform all these tasks over there. Then it is looking for the C# project. So the C# project, if you will look at the part of this DNT web app, this is a C# project, and this is the path we need to mention over there. So the path over there we just mentioned. Then we having the path for the test project. So right now we don't have any test project over there. We having only C# project where it will look for. Now we having the option here for save and queue. So first option here only save. Another option is here as soon as you will save it, it automatically initiate that build pipeline. So here before saving and queue, let's check it out the other option also. We having the option for variable. So if you are willing to define a variable for, let's say, the database connections thing, anything, so those can be defined over there. We having the trigger also over there. If you look at, we having the trigger here to enable the continuous integration. Continuous integration means every time when I will checking the code, it automatically initiate the build for the code. So if you remember in the PPT we just discussed about the continuous integration, this one. So to enable the continuous integration in this build pipeline, I need to just check this checkbox. So let me check this checkbox to enable the continuous integration to the master branch. So every time when the developer will commit the code, it initiate the build pipeline for us. Then we having the other options over there where we can define the settings related to the our build properties and another. This is a retention policy, and we having the history. So right now we don't have any history. So these are other options you can define over there for your build pipeline. Let me save and queue. Now define the save comment. So it is my first commit. I'm just using here initial. agent pool Azure pipeline. This is the agent specification. This is the branch. This is the variable. Let me save and run. So now it has been scheduled over there. You can see it is showing me this icon, means this job has been now queued. Let's wait it. And here you can check the status also, how it is running. So you can see it has been initialized. Now it is check out. First step has been done properly. Now it is trying to restore all the packages. And here on the console window it will show what is happening behind the scene. So it has been restored successfully. Now it is trying to build my code over there. So build has been done, test has been done because we don't have any test cases. Now it is trying to publish a artifact. So you can see as an output I am having a 1 artifact. It means successfully I am able to publish my code, and as an output I am having the artifacts. If you are able to get this folder, that means the code has been published. So this is the published folder which you can download and check it out whether it has been published successfully or not. I have downloaded it. Let me look at in this artifacts folder. You can see it is my same published folder as we publish in a local machine. So when you will try to publish your code locally, you will find out all the code in the DLL form, even all the static files which are the part of the www root, you will find out over there. So before creating the release pipeline, please verify this artifact folder properly. So in my case it is perfectly generated. Now we can go ahead to the next step. Azure release pipeline. So far we have successfully created the build pipeline. Now let's check out how we can create the release pipeline based upon the environment also. So if you look at here, usually we create the release pipeline to the development environment separately, then we can have the UAT, then we can have the production one. It's up to you how many stages you are willing to create over there. Even in place of the dev and the UAT, you can have the staging also. So what I'm going to do here in the web app, I don't have any environment. Whatever the web app I'm having over there. So if I will create a release pipeline, so that directly deploy the code to the production environment. So to create the stages over there, let's go back to the web app and let's create the slot, or you can say let's create the environment in the Azure Web App for the staging. So I'm not going to create the environment for the development and the testing like UAT. I will create the environment for the staging over there. So let me log into the portal over there and let's create a slot in my DNT web app. So this is my DNT web app DevOps, and what I will do here, I will create here a slot. There is option here deployment slots. In the deployment slot I need to look at how many slots are there. You can see I'm having only one slot for the production. Let's add a new slot. So this new slot I'm just creating here for the staging. This way. Then there is option if you want to clone anything. Let's say I'm not going to clone anything over there. Let me create it. So it will create a one new environment for the staging. So what we will do when we will create the release pipeline, first we deploy the code to the staging environment, and there we will test it. When it will be tested over there completely, then we will move to the production environment. So you can see the staging environment has been created over there. Now in the next video I will show you here how we can create the release pipeline for the staging environment over there. A demo for Azure release pipeline for the staging environment. So let's see how we can design a pipeline to deploy the code to the staging environment. So if you will look at here, this is my Azure pipeline, and just go to here the releases option. And right now we don't have here any release pipeline. Let me select the option new pipeline to create a new release pipeline over there. Now here we having the various templates. So now the template you can use as per your requirement. So we having here ASP.NET application. So I will use this template. But if you are having a Node.js application, Python and the PHP application, so another template you can select. So let me use the Azure App Service Deployment template. I just applied over there. Now define the stage name. It is here staging, because we are just going to provide the release to the staging environment. Now here let me add the artifacts, because ultimately we need to provide the published code. So if you remembered in the build pipeline, we just received the artifacts folder. That artifacts folder I will add here as a input, so that it will deploy that artifacts to the staging environment. Let me select here artifacts. Then we having the project, then use a source as a that build name, and just look for the always the latest version. We added over there. Then here we having a trigger. So from here I can enable the continuous deployment. So you're having the two options, either enable the continuous delivery, but in case of continuous delivery it would be the manual trigger. But if you will mention here continuous deployment, it would be the automatic trigger. So let me enable here the automatic trigger. So right now it is disabled, it's a manual. Let me enable. Now it will become the continuous deployment automatically. Let me close it after enabling the continuous deployment. Now let me configure the job over there. In the job it is asking for the Azure subscription. So make sure you have logged in over there. So in my case I have already logged in with my Azure subscription account credential. If you have not logged in, please log in and authorize it. So let me select here my subscription. It is Visual Studio Enterprise. In your case you need to log in if you have not logged in over there. Then here web app on the Windows. So this web app actually we created using the Windows environment. So that same I'm selecting. Now let me select here the app service name. So this is my app service name over there. And actually this code we are just going to deploy to the staging environment. But here I'm not getting any option to define the staging environment. So that option you will find out in this option. So here the advanced setting you can find out over there, deploy to slot or app service environment. Same thing I'm just going to do here. I'm just going to deploy this code to the resource group DNT-RG. And by default you can see it is selecting here the slot as production, but let's select here slot as staging, not the production. So that's perfect. This is the only thing we need to mention over there. Let me save it. When you will save it, it will ask for the commit. So let's define it the commit for initial commit for staging. Anything which the message you are willing to mention, you can mention over there. So this is my first release pipeline I'm creating for the staging environment. And this information after saving you can find out in the release pipeline. So from here actually you should change the release pipeline name also. Let me change the pipeline name. Let's say staging pipeline, so that you can remember it. We just save it. So we just renamed it. Okay. So let's go to the all pipelines. If you will look at in the all pipeline, we have being one pipeline over there with the name staging pipeline. So far we have not provided any release in this staging pipeline. So you can see it is empty right now. So now let's provide a release to the staging environment. So there is option create release, and here it's a automatic trigger. So I don't need to mention anything. I need to just create a release. So we already having a code into the publish artifacts. It automatically start releasing. So just initiate the release. I'm just adding here my comment, initiate my release. Let's create it. So you can see here it has been queued automatically because it's a continuous deployment. So let's wait. Even you can check the progress over this release here. It is trying to connect, and after few while you will look at here the console output about the status of this release. So you can see here the job has been initialized. Now it is showing all the status here one by one. So please wait. So it is downloading the artifacts. from the build pipeline. Now it is started to deploy to the staging environment. So you can see it is showing me the package deployment using the zip deployment initiated. It is trying to deploy the code to the staging environment over there. And you can see it is successfully updated the app service and it has been done successfully over there. So you can go back to the pipeline and the status you will find out it is succeeded. So this is my staging pipeline status. So we have provided only one release so far. And now you will check it out whether the code has been deployed to the staging environment or not. Let's click over there. Then browse to that file, to that website, sorry. If you will look at this, the website is trying to open and you can see I'm having my ASP.NET Core deployed code which we tested locally. So we having the privacy, we having the home page. So everything is working fine over there. So this way we successfully deployed our code to the staging environment using the Azure release pipeline. Azure release pipeline for the production environment. So let's see how we can create a Azure release pipeline to deploy the code to the production environment. So if you will look at here, we already having a one release pipeline for the staging one. So either I can edit the existing one, either I can create the new one. So better way is here, let's create a new pipeline. I'm just getting here a new release pipeline for the production one. And here we will follow the steps. So here first we deploy the code to the staging one. Then later on we will deploy the code to the production one. So trigger you can decide whether it can be manual trigger, whether it can be the auto trigger over there. So let me define here the first this Azure App Service deployment and the stage name is, let's say, staging. So first we will deploy the code to the staging one. Define the artifacts, location, let's say build, use the latest version over there, define the contingent deployment trigger, perfect. Similarly, let's define the jobs for the staging one. So Azure subscription, and then use here the app service name. So this is my app service name over there, and let me define here the slot name because first we are going to reply to the staging one. So slot is here and let's say staging. So these are the changes, make sure you have done of the slots. Let me save it, and it is here for staging slot. So we added it here. Let's go back to the pipeline. Now let's rename it. Let's say a release pipeline for production one. So I'm just using here prod release pipeline. This is the way I just renamed this one. Let's say prod release. And here we can add a one more step just next to this staging one. There is option here, add a new step. I'm just using here Azure App Service deployment. Let me select it, define the stage name here, prod. For production I'm just using it. Let me close it, and here let me define the job. Same way, define the Azure subscription over there, define the app service name. It is here DNT Web App, and this time I'm just going to reply the code to the production one. So I don't need to set up here anything because it should be to go to the production slot by default. Let me save it now. So it is here production prod. So let's go back to the pipeline. So you can see this is the option available here for staging. We are being for prod also. Now we need to understand here the deployment to the production environment. So if you will look at here, there is a two option here, manual one, and we have here auto. So the manual, it would be the continuous delivery, and if it is a automatic, then it would be here continuous deployment. And if you will look at right now, it is here continuous deployment. So as soon as the staging stage would be completed, it will start deploying the code to the production slot. So this is a trigger, it's happening over there. If you need the manual trigger, then use here the manual only. So you need to select this option if you want to support here this continuous delivery. But I'm not using the continuous delivery, I'm just going to use a continuous deployment. So that's why I just use here automatic trigger over there. So this is the way how you can verify whether it's a continuous deployment, whether it is a continuous delivery. So now from this pipeline, I can create a release to verify, like the code first will deploy to the staging. When it will pass to the staging, it will deploy to the production one. Let me create a release pipeline where I'm just going to use here for production one. Let's create it. So release has been created over there. If you look at it, has been first queued to the staging slot. You can check the logs over there. So you can see it is in progress and it is showing all the status in the console window over there. So you can see here it is trying to deploy the code to the Azure App Services over there. So it has been done successfully over there. And now if you will go ahead here, the staging one done successfully. So let's go ahead to the next step. In the next step, it has been queued now. So now immediately, as per the continuous deployment, it start doing the deployment to the next slot, that is here production one. So please wait. So you can see here it is now initialize the job, downloading the artifacts. Now it is trying to deploy the code to the production slot over there. So now it has been done successfully. So we can look at here the production release pipeline. So all the steps has been done here successfully in the production release pipeline. Now let me verify these changes to the Azure Web App. This is my production slot. Go to the overview section. Then here browse it. So when I will browse it here, you can see I'm getting here the deployment code over there. And the same you will find out in the staging also, because the code has been deployed in the sequence. First it deployed to the staging, then it deployed to the production one. So this is the way how we implemented the CICD for our ASPNET core application using the Azure DevOps and using the Azure Web Apps over there. Now let's verify the complete CI/CD workflow which we have designed for our web app. So let's open here the Azure DevOps website over there. And if you look at, we already having a build pipeline where we added the continuous integration trigger. So far we have only one build over here. We don't have any other build because I have not done any change in my code and commit. So as soon as I will commit the changes of my code, it automatically initiate the build as per the continuous integration trigger, and as soon as it will finish the build artifacts over there, so as per the release pipeline, it automatically trigger these pipelines over there. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to remove this staging pipeline because right now we having here two pipelines and both the pipelines we are doing the same thing. So in the production we are also deploying the code to the staging and then production. So here is staging, it's not required over here. Initially I have created it for testing purpose. Let me delete it here. I'm just going to delete all the things which we have done from the staging. Let me remove it. So if you will look at here, I'm having a end-to-end production release pipeline where we set up the deployment to the staging slot first, and then we set up to the production one. Similar way, we having a build pipeline where we just enable the continuous integration. Now let's verify the complete workflow of the code. So this is my code, and what I'm doing here, I'm just going to do here a change. Let me open here the home index.cshtml, and what I will do here, I will do here a change. Welcome to Azure DevOps CI/CD using Web App. So let's say using Azure Web App. So this is the change, let's say I'm doing over here. So let me go to the here the changes. So there is option here in the right hand side for the Git. I'm being here for, so let's go to here the team explorer, and we just do check for the changes over there. So go to the home, and we have been the changes over there. You can see one file I just changed over there. So let me, there is a change I'm doing here first time. So it is a update one. Then here from here select here commit all and push option I'm using here. So in your Visual Studio you might get a different option. So in my case I have updated my Visual Studio 2019 latest version. So in the Visual Studio 2019 latest version, they just updated the Git experience, or you can say the Git tooling support they updated in the Visual Studio latest version of the 2019. So I'm just using here this one, and the commit has been done. So as per the continuous integration trigger, it should automatically initiate it. If you look at, it's queued automatically as per the continuous integration trigger. So perfectly our CI trigger is working over there. Similar way, it automatically initiate our release trigger as soon as it will complete over there. So right now if we will look at to the releases, this is our releases. So there is no release over there because right now it is first building this one. It has been done, and after that it initiated our second release to the staging environment. So this is the workflow which I shown you in the picture. Now it is working. So first we have done with the build pipeline, then we have been the staging. Now in our case it is a continuous deployment, this one automatically to the build using the continuous integration trigger, then to the staging, then to the production one. Same it is happening over there. So staging right now it is doing, when it will be succeeded, it will proceed to the production one. So now you can see here to the staging slot, the build is succeeded. You can see the release has been succeeded. Now let's go ahead how it is showing the output. Just go to the staging slot, just browse it. What are the new changes we have done, we will see over here now. You can see I'm getting here welcome to Azure DevOps CI/CD using the Azure Web App. So perfectly we are getting the output over there as per this release, and it has been succeeded to the production slot also. Let me access here the production slot also. So this is my DNT Web App DevOps. Just go to the overview. Now let's verify the same changes to the production slot also. So here also I'm getting the same changes now. So this is the way we just implemented here continuous integration and continuous deployment successfully in our ASPNET core web application using the Azure Web App.